Okay, folks, good evening. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. I would say a lovely Wednesday night, but we've been dealing with some interesting storms out here in the good old St. Louis area. But I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Carb, just the same as ever. And Hollywood, James Knox, wherever you are, we are praying for you, buddy. We love you. Stay strong. We know you can keep on fighting the good fight. With that said, you all don't have to worry. I ain't being solo tonight. You don't have to call me Han because I'm not going solo. It is my pleasure to introduce one of the two amazing hosts we're going to have tonight here on Roundabout Sports. The one, the only lovely lady who's behind all the amazing graphics that you see on everything Interstate 70 Sports media related, Babs.
Hi guys.
How's it going, Babs? Oh God, Jared's on. Oh boy, Jared, you love me. You don't have to. I know you don't have to like pretend that you hate me, but it's okay. But Babs, how you doing, dear?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. Like I said, I mean, you know as well as I do, it's been a crazy day weather-wise.
Yes, it has tornado warnings in February. That's always amazing.
Yep. Oh, well,
So,
at least you have yourself a nice fan as well. So we'll take what we can
yay!
get.
I finally got a fan. It took me almost 40 years, but here I am.
You know what? I'll there you go. At least somebody's cheering
At least
for you.
I
Now you
have
got
one.
lots
You
of
know what I mean?
you know what? You got lots of fans. You got a whole team full of fans because I cannot tell you enough the amazing work that you do with us and our team. Like I just love it all. So thank you for all that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. And I'm very thankful to be here.
And folks, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, on YouTube, on our Facebook pages. And on top of that, later on in the show, we're going to be showing you a lot of XFL content with our special guest, our other co-host this evening, the Good Doctor, and JM. He'll be joining us in a little bit. But first, we got some things we got to get out of the way, if you will. And first, I wanted to talk about, I mean, the NBA All-Star game. Now, I'm not the biggest basketball fan. You know, I've had Dew Henson on here multiple times throughout the show's history, and we've talked in depth about the league. Now, we last talked about when LeBron passed, and oh gosh, yeah, see, there we go. They'd be stuck with me. This is what I deal with on a weekly. You see, he was like this last night, though, too, on Wrestle Talk
Gosh, it's a
podcast.
tough crowd tonight.
It is. Now, let me tell you
It
something.
really
I
is.
do. Jared brings up a great point on this. As far as the celebrity All Star game, first off, in any celebrity sporting event, the Miz is usually the star. Like
Yes.
it's great. The Miz makes All Star Weekend, whether it's in the MLB Celebrity Softball game, whether it's in the NBA All Star game, as far as the celebrity one goes. I mean, yeah. So, did you get a chance, Babs, to catch any of those festivities over the weekend for the sake of the
All I
NBA?
saw all I saw was the Miz thing that you're about to talk about, and I won't ruin it for everybody until you say it. But yes, I did see it, and it was great. It actually was very shocking, and everybody was shocked by it. I think.
Yeah, and the fact is, he the Miz almost sealed a win for Team Ryan. I
Yes.
mean, it was seemingly impossible for this shot to happen.
Oh wait, they
Um,
didn't win because of that.
it was a near
I thought they
game-winning
won by
shot.
3.
He found himself at half court with less than a second left. It was with 0.7 seconds. And I mean, the team was down 81-78, and it sailed through the net. But there was just one problem with it. And it breaks my heart to even have to bring up the heartbreaking factor is that Well, the shot didn't count time wise.
Oh, okay. That's
It
still amazing,
just
though.
oh, it was absolutely an amazing shot. I loved it, and like I said, the Miz is one of the goats when it comes to it. And Jan, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And don't worry, the good doctor will be on, or John, don't worry, the good doctor will be on soon. As you can tell, I'm wearing my spirit glasses because I can't see as well. But yes, and Jared says the shot should have counted. The NFL and NBA is in cahoots. Maybe they gave the NBA the script that the NFL had. You never know what could have happened. So there was that. Then you go to the actual NBA All Star game where our local St. Louis friend and star Jason Tatum won, basically won that game for Team Giannis. I mean, holy crap. 58 points. He set an All Star game record. I, it's, And amateur hour over, nurses. The good doctor is ready for surgery. Ooh, ouch. Okay, well, we know where we stand on this one. Okay.
Right?
Anyway, yes, 58 points. I'm telling you right now, it was insane to watch. First off, they do it differently in the All-Star game for the NBA to where it's not necessarily, which team gets the most points by the end. It's just getting to a certain threshold of points. I believe it's 181 or 182. And Team Giannis won. And of course, Jason Tatum becomes the first player in NBA history to get, look at that. Oh, geez. The losers was STL proud. A lot of the woulda, coulda, shoulda athletes out there. He's the first player in NBA history to get 50+ points in an All-Star game, a regular season game, a postseason game, and a play-in game. The guy's 24 years old. I find that unbelievable. To think that at 24 years old, you've already set records of that magnitude, and you can feel that the NBA is trying to segue him into being one of the top faces of, and we don't mean face as in WWE face good guy. We mean just as that poster guy for the league. What do you think?
You're a little bit laggy.
Am I? Like I said, I think the storms out here in our good old Lou really messed with us.
Repeat it one more time and I will answer you.
Okay. What do you feel about Jason Tatum becoming the next face of the NBA?
Well, I mean, I really don't know that much about basketball, but my theory is that it would all depend on what his playing, I guess, his work ethic is right now. I guess does he go out there and become a leader, or is he a follower, or does he, do things like Michael Jordan used to do? Is he like one of those guys that you just know are going to be it? I guess to have the it factor. I really don't know him that well. I've only heard his name a couple of times, but I mean, I would hope so. I mean, that would be great for him, and that would also be great for St. Louis because that might give us a basketball team to actually pay attention to.
Yeah. So, with that, we're going to segue into more familiar Babs territory, being the
Yes.
MLB. I know you're excited for this. So, okay, what is your biggest storyline that you're following as we are just mere days away from the start of spring training?
Actually, I'm following two very closely. I'm following the
Okay.
DeYoung story, and I'm also following the DeYoung or the O'Neill and Carlson storyline also.
Okay. I care to delve a little bit more into. First, we'll go into the DeYoung storyline because and yes, I do believe, well, I do agree with the good doctor himself, who will be on soon, about Tatum will be the face of the league. And he, Jared saying he has the it factor. That's what needed in dire moments. And yep, there's a lot of new rules for MLB in 2023,
Yes, there
and
are.
that they suck, and we will get into them sometime soon. But for now, I want to get into more about Paul DeYoung, because if there's anybody that probably shouldn't still be on the team, that somehow has found himself still on the team, it's got to be Paul DeYoung. And you know, even though Mo hasn't said anything set in stone, his contract's just insane to just cut him loose. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
where do you think, the Cardinals stand in the whole situation with what to do with Paul DeYoung?
Well, I think it'll all depend on how he games during spring training, because he's been very, very under the microscope, so to speak, for the last couple of seasons. And I feel like if he doesn't produce like he's supposed to, I feel that he might be traded by the deadline. With Mo, of
I
course,
mean,
paying for most of his contract, but
well, that's the thing. I mean, would Mo be willing to take on that type of contract eating just for the sake of getting rid of somebody? And
for some
this is,
for some prospects or some cash that they desperately need with maybe the Bally situation, maybe.
well, and see, Eddie brings up the point about how to release him, but the problem is, Eddie, and Babs just brought it up, is the fact that yes, he is tied down to a contract that would hurt um, the Cardinals. And you look at the problem here is Harrison Bader has not been the same since his plantar fasciitis injury. Because obviously the Cardinals got the better end of the deal with Montgomery. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
Montgomery is one of the reasons we made the playoffs or even had a true chance. Um, I do agree with John here about DeYoung getting demoted. I can definitely see that happening more so than traded, because if you trade DeYoung, you're gonna have he's to me not suitable enough for a straightforward trade. You're gonna have to include somebody that you're not gonna want to trade as well if you wanted to unload him. Um, and we look at what Jared said here is like towards the end of Bader card's time, he was truly shining and being put out there more. And that's true. And that's the thing. He was that star in the making, but the problem is the injury took its toll. He never fully recovered. The Cardinals saw a chance to get a left-hander that they needed because Steven Matz was a failed experience in experiment in year one. So this is where we're at now. So if Paul DeYoung, to me, he's not going to be a starter. He'll, as
Oh
far as
no.
a full-time starter, he's not going to be a full-time starter. He can be a coming off the bench guy, but if anything else, I mean, there was a time where he was at all-star caliber, but I don't see that anymore.
Yeah, I think his first couple of years with the Cardinals, that's where he kind of sort of peaked, so to speak, because after that he's just kind of went away. Like you just really haven't heard much about him. He's got I hate to put it out there like this, but he's got blind squirrel like mentality of, oh, he finally found a nut, like that he finally got that run, he finally got that hit, but he's not consistent about it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. You don't sign a guy to a big deal if he just hits one home run.
Yeah.
And I like this. The Royals will give the Cardinals a bag of baseballs, not brand new ones, and a case of Boulevard for DeYoung. You know what? We'll
No,
take it.
no, we want Yingling. We don't want Boulevard. We want Yingling.
Okay, we'll take the England too. And without the shift, you need
Yingling.
athletic second baseman. Um, before we go into the whole situation with Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson in the outfield, let's look at the infield, because the Cardinals to me have one of the best infields in baseball. Top 5. I mean, all stars at every spot. this is the thing. You got your Contreras situation figured out. You got the catcher situation. Obviously, Goldie's fine at first. Arenado's fine at third. Where the hell are you going to put Tommy Edman? Are you going to keep him at second? Are you going to move him to short? I mean, like Jared said, a lot of rule changes have happened in MLB for the 2023 season, and one of them is the banning of the shift that really affects what you as a team need in defensive fielders on the infield.
We could always get Matt Carpenter back now that the shift isn't there. I'm just saying.
Oh gosh. Oh
And the whole crowd in the chat was like, "Nope, we're gone now."
no, we're gone. Oh, there you go. Well, bring Ozzy out
Yay.
of retirement. Out. I'd take him over
Yeah,
Royce.
I'm
I'll
okay
take him
with
over
that.
Royce Clayton. I'll tell you that much. And here we go. Jared says Paul should be a water boy or even a backup guy. He's getting older and he's not advancing as most would. Okay, so I don't know about the whole water boy comment, but he does make a point, a good point here, because okay, when you talk about Paul DeJong, he's not some like he's 29 years old. He's batting a career 233. But ever since his All-Star year in 2019, it's been, oh gosh. Yep. I said it. Give me, because that was the reason Ozzy retired. Tony preferred Royce Clayton over Ozzy Smith. And everybody knows that Ozzy Smith was doing better even in 1996. So yeah, folks. Okay, Jared says Tommy should be at second. So I want everybody that's tuning in, give me their thoughts. Do you want Tommy Edman to be at second base, or should he be at shortstop and maybe move Gorman? I mean, what do you all think, those that are Cardinal fans, about this infield situation? Because I mean, it's a mess. I think putting Edman at second, that's a solid move right there for the Cardinals, especially to that direction. Eddie says put him at shortstop. Babs, where do you put Tommy Edman?
I'm actually doing some number crunching right at the moment, so I will get back to you because I'm seeing what his numbers are at short and what his numbers are at second base. So maybe I can get a better feel because
that's fine. And John agrees with Jared here. Wins a year away defensively, and like I said about trading Paul DeJong and maybe getting something on top of with Paul DeJong and trading for some prospects or something. That's what you need, because at the same time, look, everybody knows this is the year of Jordan Walker. This is Jordan Walker season. The hype, we haven't been this hyped on a Cardinals prospect since the late Oscar Taveras. And what people are tuning into is to see how this works out. He's kind of been a little sluggish so far down in Jupiter, but you know what? It's the start. It's literally, to me, nothing to worry about. I'm really excited. I'll tell you that much. But you have to think, once all these guys that they have lined up, ready to call up, once they're gone from the minors, then as the Cardinals, got to think, well, what are you going to do as far as trade packages go? Then you got to get more prospects. See, when Branch Rickey did, and I know I'm going to sound like Parker when I talk about Cardinal history, but Branch Rickey basically designed the farm system as an ever-going cycle. It's like a conveyor belt at an assembly at a factory. And Jerry, we're going to bring this up soon, and I agree with the good doctor on this. Jordan Walker is the Cards version of Bobby Witt Jr. It was so fun covering Bobby Witt Jr. last year, because even though the Royals struggled mightily, holy hell, was Bobby Witt Jr. Fun to watch and fun to cover. So, but yeah, right now, keep on. And Jim, thank you so much for tuning in.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I told you you've got plenty of fans, but does she ever listen to me? No.
Never. I never listened to anybody.
You never listen to anybody, even especially when you need to, most of all, because you got yourself a great fan base here. And yeah, we'll put this in now. Jared asks, how will Wilson? You know what? I got a couple.
Jeremy has
So
0 fans. I'll be your
I got.
fan, Jeremy.
I
I'll be your
see. There
biggest
you go.
bestie.
So sweet. Anyway, so we want to. Oh, hang on. I want to go back to what Jared was saying before he hated me again. Um, I wonder how will Wilson Contreras do this year. I think he's going to do great. It's weird whenever I remember going to card stores and seeing Wilson Contreras cards, and I'm saying to myself, "Oh, that Cubs uniform, get him away." And now I'm like, "Ah, shit, I got to cheer for him now." That's where we're at.
Yeah.
It's weird.
My favorite part about this whole thing is been like Wilson is actually along with us with the trolling too, because people have been like signing baseballs or having baseballs signed and be like, my biggest cards fan or something like that, having them inscribe it to their Cubs friends, and he is totally for it. And that's my favorite part ever. Yeah. Like
oh,
he like one of like there was a signing at spring training that I was reading on one of these autograph pages that he walked up to him and he was on the phone with his like Cubs fan or fan friend, and he was like, "Hey, I want you to talk to my new friend that he's really nice and he's a really big Cardinals fan." Well, it was Wilson, and he got on the phone. He was like, "Yeah, I love the Cardinals, blah blah blah." It was so great.
oh, jeez. Well, Jared's
Yeah.
saying, a lot of people will say certain guys will do great, then unfortunately they do good at the beginning, and then that's what it matters most. We don't get the same results. Eddie's saying Wilson, I'm thinking hits about 22 home runs. I think so because you know what the thing of it is, believe it or not, what made Yachty great wasn't his offense. As time went on, he was a much better offensive catcher than he had originally been. But look, everybody fell in love with Yachty because he was the best defensive catcher in baseball for almost almost 20 years. Him and Buster Posey were the like 1-2 punch of being the best catchers in baseball. And I think the best, most alarming way to look at it is, and then I think this speaks volumes to Salvador Perez on the Royals. You look at the fewest stolen bases by an MLB by allowed by MLB teams since 2005, which was Molina's first main year, and the Cardinals are way ahead of the next closest team, and I believe the Royals are third on that list, which once again showcases how great Salvador Perez has been, and he's known for his offensive prowess. And that's the thing, where Molina was the defensive guy, as good as Salvi's been when it comes to pitching, or I'm sorry, when it comes to fielding. I mean, he has already well over 1,200 hits, almost 800 RBIs, over 223 home runs, and he's only 32 years old. Another 6-7 years in him, and I can see him getting to 350 home runs, which is crazy to think about because not a whole lot of catchers are doing that type of thing these days. And yeah, and see, this is what I'm getting at. This and this makes both of them two of the best catchers of the 21st century because defensively, no, Salvi's not far behind. Molina's still to me the top guy. And there he is himself, Christopher Miles, the best heel referee in the business. And I know I'm going to get the reply from him on that. So what the hell? Why not? But it's all great to join you. And folks, make sure to tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central for Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles. It's always a great time to tune in, watch him, and the amazing folks he has on his show as well. Walker, according to John, will have 23 home runs. Wilson Contreras will have 20. Like I said, I see anywhere from the 18 to 23 home run mark for Wilson Contreras. Jordan Walker, I don't have a single clue. I really don't know because I'm just in it for the. Oh, look at that. Christopher Miles is the biggest issue in wrestling by being a heel. See, Jared dislikes other people too. That makes me feel better about myself. Um, and so going back to where we were about the infield, then you also put in people have brought up about Brandon Donovan, who had a very good rookie season. And what I think people value about him most is that, and the team values about him, is that he is very versatile. He can play the infield as well as the outfield, and he plays all the positions very solid. Um, so I feel that it's a good chance they might even sub him in. I don't think he's going to be the guy that you're going to put in for 140, 50 games as a shortstop. But I think what you should do is, and this may sound like a crazy idea, but almost you keep Edman at second. You have Contreras, you have Goldie, and you have Arenado. You have those four positions figured out. Almost, at a certain amount of time, you just got to work with who you have at shortstop, all the available options, and just kind of rotate and see how it works. Don't do one game, next game, with different guys, but give each one of them their time span and see how it works the best. I like see, and this is true. Donovan and Nolan did request Ozzy specifically to come down to Jupiter and work with them. Donovan is a good 80 game guy at most, but you know what? And Eddie says he even starts Donovan at second, and I'm assuming that means he would put Edman at short. This is an interesting problem for the Cardinals. That's why I look at it. It is a problem, but it's an interesting one because the Cardinals don't have to go out and panic and get somebody, but they have to kind of sit down and say to themselves, okay, Babs, we got all these people. Who are we going to put at second and short? So that's what I'm looking at with this. And have you been able to find those numbers when it comes to Tommy Edman and where he thrives?
Yeah, I would actually keep him at second, and I would actually probably keep that Donovan in the shortstop position for a little while just to see what you have. I mean, you really have nothing to lose at this point, really. I'm sorry, I keep messing with my ear because my headphones keep falling out.
It's fine. You're A-okay. And see, there you go. Tommy has to be at second. Now, we're going to get a couple more points out with the Cardinals, and then we'll get a little Royals talk, and then we will bring on our dear friend, the good doctor, because there is plenty of XFL talk to bring about. So I want to delve into what Eddie brought up here. And he wants to talk. So you look at the 25-man roster. Well, it's the 40-man roster at the moment. But let's look at the roster who was consistently on the big leagues last year. And that would include Gorman, despite injuries. Do you see the Cardinals making any trades anytime soon?
Trades? I don't think so.
I don't see
I don't
it
think
either.
I don't think until at least the beginning of the season.
I don't even think until midsummer. The Cardinals are a much better team. Look at it. John says Gorman and Flaherty traded at deadline midway. Package deal. They're not trading Flaherty. This is Flaherty's make or break season. There's been so much hype around him. And while he's stayed out of trouble, it's the injury bug that keeps biting him. Well, this is his year to really prove. Dakota Hudson is good of, great guy. Pitcher, can't depend on him as a starter. He can barely get out of the third inning or barely start the fourth inning. So they're not trading Flaherty. Alex Reyes, gone. Right now, you got Quintana gone. You got yourself Wainwright,
That was really
who basically,
sad.
yeah, I was sad Quintana was gone because once again, him and Montgomery, him, Jose Quintana and Jordan Montgomery are the J.A. Happ and John Lester of 2022. They were the reason the Cardinals made the playoffs. That and of course Albert Pujols just absolutely kicking ass at over 40 at 42 years old. The fact that he even did that was mind blowing. I loved it. But no, you lose another lefty. So now you got Wainwright, you got Montgomery, you got Flaherty. They're gonna try to put Steven Matz back in there, and now you're trying to figure out that fifth spot. And that's what spring training is going to be about: figuring out who fills um the fifth spot in the rotation. Oh, I'm sorry, not yeah. What the hell? I forgot. Miles Michaelis, the man himself. Okay, so they might not even. You got Wainwright, Michaelis, Montgomery, Flaherty, and right now Matz
And
will be the
Matt,
fifth guy.
yes.
Yeah. But they're still going to figure it out based off injury history and everything, especially after what happened last year. The Cardinals.
So that brings up a question for me on my side. What did they do with Hudson?
Hudson's got to be bullpen. What? This is the thing. Like, the game has changed so much to where you don't have to. How do I word this? There's no reason Dakota Hudson should have 80 pitches by the third inning, but he did constantly last year. That is the problem, and that is why he should not be a starter. And I think, that's why keeping Michaelis and Montgomery. Look, Wainwright's going to retire a Cardinal. He's not going anywhere else. When the time comes, he's going to retire a Cardinal, just like Molina did. But when it comes to Michaelis, got to keep him. You got to keep Montgomery. You got to keep these pitchers that they have. And on top of that, you also need to keep your bullpen together. Hudson can be beneficial out of the bullpen because, look, if you ask for an inning of work from him, well, hell, that's not a problem because that's all he does is practically pitch an inning or two.
Yeah.
But
and you're not wrong about that.
Yeah. So asking him to go deep into games is where you start running into some hurdles and some roadblocks. Now, I look at, and look at this. You know what? I would love to see this. I'm just saying. Or better yet, it ain't going to happen. But I've always wanted a pitcher's home run derby. Get Bumgarner, get Carlos Zambrano out there, get Wainwright, get all the guys that can hit home runs, that can pitch.
That would be amazing. I would watch it.
And so here's Jared brought up what I wanted to bring up next. And I know you and I talked about this before the show. So how will the Cards pitchers do with the new timer this year? Okay, so for those that don't know, there is a new pitch clock. And, it's a interesting situation. So Gallego said, quote, "It's hard for me. It's a new experience and a big challenge. I'm trying to make some adjustments about the timing, but it's a huge step. MLB instituted new rules that mandated pitchers throw a pitch within 15 seconds of receiving the ball from the catcher when the bases are empty. When there's runner on, pitchers have 20 seconds to deliver the pitch. Now, violations of that will lead to a ball. And the new rules also limit the number of disengagements, so pickoff throws and step-offs, to 2 per plate appearance. You violate that rule, it's a balk. So first thing, I have to ask you, what do you think about that?
I haven't heard that rule yet.
Yes.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that rule yet. That's terrible. I don't like any of them, actually. And actually, I saw Otani. He made some comments about the pitch clock, and he was like, he was kind of excited because he likes to pitch a little bit faster, but at the same time, he understands that it could also affect how he pitches and also the physical part of it too. So he's kind of like on the fence for it.
Jared brings up that, and yeah, I bet with Otani, I mean, you're trying to get all these players to change, something they've been used to for so long. Jared said the timer's a headache and a waste of time, along with pointless at the end of the day. Um, Whoever's in charge at MLB must have been drunk or high. Well, that's Rob Manfred for you in a nutshell.
I
Probably.
mean, he's not wrong. I mean, he's sorry.
I don't even want to know what the hell Manfred was on. So yeah, it's now the one. Here we go. Let's see what you got with John has. With second base being 3.5 inches closer and only 3 pickoff attempts to first, there will be many more stolen bases, which is interesting because you think about what was one of the biggest things over the past few years, the lack of stolen bases. A guy gets 25 stolen bases, these tops in the majors. Meanwhile, at home, there's the best ring announcer in the business, Chris Rodell
Hi,
himself.
Chris. How are you?
It is great seeing you, man. Hope you're feeling much better, okay? And yeah, I definitely think that all the guys in the past that were playing were just laughing seeing all these guys getting like 10, 20 stolen bases. So yeah, that's where I'm at with everything. Is there anything you wanted to bring up in regards to baseball at all?
I really don't think. I don't really
Oh,
don't
well,
think
there
so.
is. I know
What?
you wanted to bring up about the O'Neill and Carlson
Oh,
situation.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I will give you the floor. I want you to delve into that a little bit more for those tuning in at home.
Well, as everybody knows, Ali has mentioned that O'Neill and Carlson are basically versing each other for the center field position. And I've been kind of following it closely because I'm a really big Tyler O'Neill fan. And yeah, I'm just kind of interested. It's like I told earlier before we came on the show that it almost looks like they're opening up a position or a person to be traded later, which really kind of debunks my theory about them making a trade. But if they were to make a trade before the deadline, I kind of see Carlson being in there. I kind of see, maybe a De Jong name being in there too. And maybe some like lower tier prospect. But it's like I said, I really think that they'll probably go with O'Neill a little bit more with this because he has a little bit better speed and he has a little bit more of a range, so to speak. So I think that's kind of where I'm at on that. I kind of see O'Neill winning that position and I kind of see them moving Carlson. So
We're gonna have to see how that all goes about because I feel like having both of them would be beneficial because even starting O'Neill shouldn't disvalue Carlson and starting Carlson shouldn't disvalue Tyler O'Neill. I think both are going to have
yeah,
bounce back years this year. I
I
just think
just really hope Tyler can stay healthy.
that's the thing. When looking at the Cardinals, I think health is just the number one concern. Of all of a lot of the players with question marks on them. Jared saying he's a big Tyler fan, and he should definitely have that position. And we'll
Well, see, me and
definitely.
Jared are gonna have to be best friends now because if he's a big Tyler fan and he thinks that he, should have that position too, we have to be friends now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of injuries,
You
I
said,
do have this. Oh,
I'm
Jared.
sorry.
No, you're good. I love it. I love to see it. So, actually, just came out that outfielder Drew Waters of the Kansas City Royals suffered a left oblique tweak, according to Aaron Rodgers of MLB.com. Now, it's actually been upgraded to a strain, and he's expected to miss 6 weeks, which does not. You know what, Jared? I'm not dealing with you right now.
I'm
Anyway,
sorry. I started
we
a thing. I'll be quiet now.
no, you're good. And it does put Waters' readiness for the March 30th opening day game against Minnesota in more jeopardy than original. And on top of that, it could add a lot more competition for some of the young guys who are wanting to replace Michael A. Taylor in center, let alone, taking Drew Waters' spot out in the outfield. So we'll see how that all plays about. But with that, folks, I must say, first off, thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Karp, alongside our dearly beloved Babs. And you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram now. Thank you to over here, yours truly, this lovely lady right here. And we are on YouTube, so please, subscribe to us. You'll find on Interstate 70 Sports Media on our YouTube channel, you'll find all of our live Roundabout Sports episodes. With that being said, the doctor is in, folks. It is time for our insane XFL talk, and there's a lot to talk about. He covers them more than I could have ever imagined or dreamed to. In fact, he is doing weekly XFL power rankings on Interstate70sports.media. And he's going to be doing them live here tonight as we recap week 1 and preview week 2. Ladies and gentlemen, the good doctor himself, JM.
What's up, guys?
How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you all? I hear it's pretty wet up there.
It is, yes, it is pretty wet indeed. And there you go. You got some happy folks ready to see you. And see, it says it itself at the bottom that the good doctor is in.
Right on.
So first I wanted to kick it off by asking you, by reiterating this point. For the first 57 minutes of last Saturday's game between the Battlehawks and the Brahmas in San Antonio, It was almost the equivalent of watching a mid-2010s Rams team.
Oh, I thought Rick Brooks was coaching that game and Tony Banks was playing quarterback.
Well, it was the equivalent because these St. Louis Rams teams had very good defenses, but the offensive lines were abysmal.
I don't know if I'd call it very good. I don't know if I'd call it a very good defense. Come on now.
That defensive line, are you kidding? I mean, come on. That D-line with Donald, Chris Long, Robert Quinn, Michael Brockers, I don't care what anyone says, that's a terrifying line.
Yeah, but I think they underperformed greatly too.
Well, I'll tell you that. I think that whole damn franchise underperformed
man.
greatly. But anyway, and for the first 57 minutes last Sunday, the Battlehawks underperformed greatly. But something clicked in A.J. McCarron's mind to say, you know what? If I can win a national championship in Alabama, well, hell, I can win a game in San Antonio with the St. Louis Battlehawks, proving that Ka-Kaw is still the law.
Now I will say this: as much of a Battlehawks supporter as I am, the whole Ka-Kaw thing, you will never hear me say that because I think it's totally ridiculous. I make fun of all you people who say this Ka-Kaw shit are marks, and I laugh at you, and I look at you. I'm higher on a higher level than anyone who says Ka-Kaw and all that bullshit. I'm sorry, but it's. But you know, someone pointed out to me today. They said, "How is it any different than me doing the tomahawk chop for my Chiefs?" And I said, "Well, I guess so I'll allow it, but just so you know,
it's not something you enjoy.
Someone is doing Ka-Kaw. I may not be laughing on the outside, but on the inside, I'm thinking, you sorry excuse for a mark."
Look, when I went to Atlanta for a Braves game Literally, it felt like every damn pitch they were doing the tomahawk chop.
They do.
It felt like every damn pitch they were doing it down in Atlanta. The fact that they still are getting away with it, I mean, now they get to use their cell phones and do it, but that's beside the point. What is your biggest takeaway as we start to recap week 1 of the XFL? First,
Sure.
before we go into the games, as a league from the big perspective, based on the viewership, the social media interactions that you received, covering it on I70 Sports Media, and in general, how do you feel the league fared in week 1?
Better than I thought, but not as good as I had hoped, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Going into it, I knew that week 1 would be decent for television. I did not expect the crowds. I had projected all 4 games to total about between 40 and 50,000, and I checked, and it was just over 61. And a large percent of that is in thanks to the San Antonio Brahmas. And St. Louis hasn't even had a home game yet, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep up with the ratings. I mean, St. Louis and San Antonio had the highest rated game. I think 1.57 million. I have my notes here, but it was somewhere around there. And, but the thing I have to say about that is they were competing with NASCAR and the NBA All-Star game. So
very true.
I think this week, I hope you see higher numbers. I don't know if we will. I think tomorrow night's going to be a big it's going to be a big sign with a Thursday night game, not on a main network. I think it's on, what is it, FX?
Yes.
Something like that.
Which I don't agree with personally, because if you're a league trying to revise yourself, I don't want to say upstart league, because hell, how many times has this league been around?
Right.
But when you are a league trying to revitalize yourself after having to be shut down from the pandemic, you want to get those big. First off, having it on ABC and ESPN was perfect, and
Yes.
so to have it on FX, I just
it's going to be tough to draw a big number on FX, because a lot of people may not have it. They might not even know where it is on their TV unless you watch, American Horror Story or something like that. You're probably not going to know FX. But the one thing that I did find today is, so the San Antonio St. Louis game was the most watched, 1.57 million. However, that was down 54% from the same equivalent game 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, they drew 3.39 million. Now, you could say, well, people are skeptical of it. You could say that the other events going on hurt it. I don't like to use that excuse, because you got to remember, especially in St. Louis, the Battlehawks are going to be going up against the Blues, the Cardinals, and the new soccer team at some point. So that's why I was very worried those first 58 minutes of that game, because I'm just thinking, my God, you're going to start seeing tickets outside the dome for $2, like back when the Rams were on their swan song. Because St. Louis fans, as far as football goes, they have a strong passion for it, but they are a very fickle group. I feel like that when their team struggles, they don't support them fully. And I know I'm going to get heat from that from St. Louis fans, but that's fine. They're nowhere near Kansas City type football fans, but that's neither here nor there. But that was my concern. I'm like, holy crap, man, if they only score 3 points and they lose this game, that first home game, I mean, you're looking at potentially coming in 0-3. You're not going to draw 20,000 fans for an 0-3 team. You're just not. And that's what my fear was. But by some grace of God, A.J. McCarron pulled out some of his Alabama magic and willed the team to victory. Now, hey, he found Austin Prohl in the end zone, which was pretty cool considering Ricky is a coach on the team. And Austin's a pretty darn good wide receiver. He was a very good player for North Carolina. And so I think you'll be hearing a lot about him the rest of the season, as long as that offensive line can give AJ time to throw the ball. And that was the big problem. The offensive line was atrocious. And I think I even quoted that in my piece. I called them atrocious because they were. I mean, they weren't blocking anything. And they couldn't run the ball. AJ had 2-3 seconds to throw the ball. It was bad. And then, their wide receivers, which, when I talked to Coach Beck earlier in the season, the one thing he stressed as a former tight end is they're going to be a very explosive offense. They're going to do a lot of passing. Well, I was waiting for that explosion for 58 minutes, and it finally happened. But that's mainly because the offensive line gave them time. And San Antonio didn't do themselves any favor with, the schemes they were running. I believe they pulled a number of their starters, which was very strange. Hines Ward really cost his team that game. So it's going to be interesting to watch San Antonio to see where they go from here as well, because they're a very talented squad. They have a great quarterback, Jack Cohn, who played at the University of Notre Dame. And, he's a stud. He can throw the ball. So San Antonio is going to be a team to reckon with, and they have a great fan base that rivals St. Louis. So that'll be interesting to see. But, hey, man, to come out with that game with a win was huge, because tomorrow night's going to be a major test for this team.
First we have some questions for you coming in. And the first one we had is from Jared about, we talked about how the Battlehawks have 3 road games in a row before they play their home opener. Now,
Yes.
Of course, you even said your biggest fear was, having to go to the Dome as an 0-3 team. Now, thankfully, they don't have to, but still don't want them to be there as a 1-2 team.
Yeah,
well, in regards to it, now St. Louis was the leading attendance, city when it came to XFL 2020. So Jared's asking, do you think St. Louis will have the most in attendance this season?
My heart wants to say yes. My brain is telling me no. And I'll tell you why. I don't think it's a lack of support, but San Antonio is going to lead the league in attendance, I feel, because the only other game in town is the Spurs. And the Spurs aren't very good this year. Let's be honest.
Oh, no. Second worst in the league,
and I grew up a Spurs fan, so it hurts me to see them struggling so bad because, man, when I was younger, Spurs were they were the best.
Good old Coach Pop.
So there's not a whole lot in San Antonio for them to go to as far as sporting events. Here, like I said, you got the Blues, even though they suck. You got you're going to have the Cardinals. You're going to have the soccer team. That's a lot of events for fans to put their money into, and they got to make a decision. So, and we know in St. Louis, baseball rules the roost. But I will tell you this, the Battlehawk fans are a different breed of fans. They are like a college. It's almost like a college environment going to a game. I know I used to razz my St. Louis buddies about how they don't know how to tailgate because they don't have anywhere to tailgate but parking garages here in St. Louis. But hey, man,
much honestly though, I hate to say it,
they get after it and they get wild. So it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be close. And again, a lot will depend on St. Louis's record. If St. Louis can put together 3, 4, 5 wins in a row to open the season, that dome's going to be packed. So, I think that there's a chance they could, but right now my money's on San Antonio.
Since San Antonio opened up with the highest attendance, so they set the bar high. So we'll have to see where it goes. Now, this is an interesting question because we know how you feel about Ka-Kaw. You've talked a lot about roosting and all that. So my dad has to ask, how does the good doctor feel about cock-a-doodle-doo?
Whatever makes people happy, I guess. I'll tell you this. I guess that's a lot more fan friendly than the Browns fans chanting "asshole" at me when I walked in Chiefs gear. So, and I'm talking about the stadium.
No, that's coming from a Browns fan right here. When did that happen?
This was back in 2014. I sat third row of the dog pound.
Oh my God!
This is a true story. As soon as I walked in the stadium, a 7-year-old boy with his dad tugged on his dad's arm and says, "Look, Daddy, asshole!" And the entire concourse started chanting "asshole."
Raise the kid right. Good job. No.
That's pretty amazing. I'm actually pretty jealous of that story.
I had on my last name, Houseright, on my jersey. And my buddy with me had a Montana jersey. And my other buddy at the time had a Dwayne Bowe jersey because Bowe was on the team. These drunk guys behind us, man, they were calling me house wrong, housewife. My buddy was Hannah Montana, and my other buddy was David Bowie. And they kicked our ass that game, like 31-7. But we damn near got killed walking out of the stadium. We barely made it out alive. That's the most hostile environment I've ever been in for a football game. And both teams were awful.
I will say it amazes me because once you mentioned it was the one in 2014, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I say to myself, first off, you take a look at, it could have been worse. First off, it could have been worse in two ways. It could have been Battlegate, which I remember, which, yes, Cleveland got screwed on that one. Mm-hmm. But it also could be during any of the Bounty Bowls or anything in Philadelphia when they started throwing batteries and snowballs and basically piss and water bottles everywhere. I'm telling you, talk about Cleveland fans being of different breed. People like to talk about Chiefs fans being a different breed. No. No. Philly fans are the different breed. They were toppling streetcars before the game even started a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, they're a group of obnoxious. I've been to probably 17 or 18 different stadiums in the NFL. The one place I've told people I will never go is Philadelphia. Because I probably wouldn't make it out. I'll be honest.
Well, you heard about what they did to Fred Warner's wife when she was at the game. I mean, they heckled her like crazy. And John says the Bengals treated your Chiefs nice, granted, considering they won most times.
We call those first 3 wins foreplay. They couldn't rise to the occasion in that last event.
So before Bass and I give you the full floor, as we get into this, Jared has another question for you. Who do you think is likely to be in the champion matchup? And I know these types of things are hard based off of just 1 week, but we have to take into account the seasons aren't going to progress as long as an NFL season or a college season.
No.
And the playoff format isn't as deep.
Right.
Everything, the XFL is a compacted league. Mm-hmm. Everything's on a tighter leash, on a tighter schedule.
Right.
And you look at the rosters and, which guys had the most experience. First off, everybody was hyped when people were like, when Ryan Willis was going to be the quarterback, they were like, oh, sweet. Okay. We've heard good things. And then he's gone because, look, they get A.J. McCarron, and it's like, holy shit, we just got A.J. McCarron? So Jared says St. Louis versus San Antonio. And right now, San Antonio does look like a great, well-oiled machine starting it off. So, JM, I want to go with you and see who you think.
Well, I don't want to disappoint him, but I don't think either of those two teams will be in the championship.
That's fine.
And it's no offense to him or either team. I think they're both good teams, but they both have significant holes. And in a league like this, a 8-team league with 10 straight weeks, with the players that they have at their disposal, it's hard to fill holes. So when a player in a prime position goes down, you're in trouble. You know, especially offensive line, when an offensive lineman goes down, you're in trouble. You know, and that's why I'm concerned about the Battlehawks, is because, listen, there was no preseason, so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt for week 1. But that offensive line, man, as someone who loves the offensive line and studies it, it was, man, I've seen high school teams play better offensive line than those guys. And again, I'm not trying to be offensive to the players, because I'm going to have to go in the locker room and talk to some of them. So, but it was bad, you know, and so that concerns me. And San Antonio, while I love Jack Cohn, my Notre Dame guy, Hines Ward has already showed that he may not be ready to be a head coach. You know, he might be a little out of his element trying to be a head coach. I think he's a great defensive or offensive player. You know, obviously as a wide receiver, he knows offense. But they lost that game. That win for the Battlehawks on Sunday, make no mistake about it, that's more about San Antonio losing that game than St. Louis winning. I hate to say it, but that's how I look at it. San Antonio was playing not to lose, and that's why they lost.
You know, I look at, and Babs, I definitely want your opinion on that game as well. You know, I look at that last 3 minutes. There is no reason you shouldn't be able to stop that 4th and 15. First off, I think that's a crazy
I love
gamble. I love it. It's just crazy to me to think that, because let's face it, onside kicks aren't going to do a thing.
No,
but the fact that you know, they got touchdown, 4th and 15, drive down the field, touchdown, sack to end the game, all in the span of just basically 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even use all their timeouts. You know, I can see San Antonio was playing not to lose, but I do think St. Louis was obviously putting their all into it. I think, you know, the coaches on the sideline definitely, you know, I like Anthony Becht. I think he's a phenomenal choice. And it's interesting because he's probably the least notable of the main XFL coaches.
He is.
Of the XFL head coaches, he's the least notable, and yet he has such great ties to St. Louis.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes him so popular. That's the thing, you know, what makes St. Louis such a great sports town is that it's almost like once it's a St. Louisan, always a St. Louisan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once you're part of this city, your family, you're always a part of it, you know, and you're always going to be welcome back. I think the perfect example was when Pujols left and he came back a few years later with the Angels, and the ovation he got every at bat over that weekend, you know. And Anthony Becht was a tight end, you know, for the Rams, and he has a residence, you know, in St. Louis County, you know, like he's so familiar with everything going on. So it's just so cool. And I also love all the events the Battlehawks do.
Yeah.
You know, on top of it. But Babs, I want your input on, like, how did you think that game at the end was played? Do you feel like it was more of a St. Louis playing to win, or San Antonio trying not to lose?
I think it was a little bit of A and a little bit of B too. I think I'm laggy a little bit, and I apologize. My internet is like really, really spotty right at the moment.
That's okay. We can, if anything, it's the perfect chance, because following everything that's happened week 1, we're going to pass it to the good doctor so he can delve into his power rankings, and I will put up the team each time, the logo of the team each time you go through.
Okay.
But we will be backstage. Folks, stick around here on Roundabout Sports as the good doctor, JM, will be going through his week 1 power rankings of the XFL.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the number 1 team for the week, and that is the Houston Roughnecks. The Roughnecks came in as the most dominant team in 2020. And it looks like they picked up right where they left off. You know, they the offense for Houston dominated, man. They tore up Orlando for like 353 yards. and quarterback Brandon Silvers threw for 272 and a pair of touchdowns. Now, he did throw 2 picks, which were, that really hurt them, but they still blew out Orlando. And the main thing that I take away from Houston is Wade Phillips is their coach, and he's the best coach in the XFL by far. He's had all that experience in the NFL, which is going to definitely carry over into the XFL. And, another thing you got to look at is their defense, 7 sacks. And, they also had a decent run game. Max Borghi had 74 yards rushing and a touchdown. So really, they are the complete team right now in the league. So it's going to be interesting because they are going to be battling Arlington this week. And Arlington is my number 2 ranked team for the week. The Renegades, the Arlington Renegades, they won by beating the Vipers, Las Vegas Vipers. The offense might have been a bit stagnant, but Drew Plitt had 3 field goals, and the defense led the way, allowing Vegas, which is a very offensive team, they only had 16 yards on 14 plays in the second half. 2 pick sixes against Luis Perez was a big difference maker in the game. And Bob Stoops will clean up some things for Arlington. And as the offense's red zone efficiency will be tops on that list because they struggled in the red zone. Regardless, that defense that they have makes them one of the top teams in the league. And to see them go up against Houston this week will probably be the game of the week. And, barring any major changes, I think one of those 2 will be the top seed next week. So my number 3 team, and this might be a little controversial because they're 0-1 right now, the Las Vegas Vipers. I know they're 0-1, right? I get that, but listen, this team is likely one of the most talented teams in the whole league. Luis Perez started hot, 14 of 17 for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. All right. The problem was he had 2 picks in the second half, and that cost them the game. Their defense, though, was stout. They allowed just 9 points. If you can do that, you're going to win most of your games. So let's see. So basically, cut down the turnovers, and the Vipers are a dominant team. I could see them, being a number 1 ranked team later this season if they start putting together some W's. So we'll see what happens. Number 4 at 1-0 is the DC Defenders. All right, the Defenders got past a very strong Seattle team, 22-18. The offense struggled in the win. They only had averaged 3.3 yards per play and had 177 total yards. The reason? Poor quarterback play. And St. Louis fans, you might want to close your ears because our old friend Jordan Tiamu, he stunk up the place. He laid a big old turd in that game, completing just 8 of 19, 86 yards, and a pick. All right, I was watching that game. I'm like, oh, Jordan's going to have a good game. No, he looked really bad. So the good news for the Defenders, the defense, which is coached by one of my favorite coaches of all time, Greg Williams. And if you remember Greg Williams from the NFL, he's a guy, he was here in St. Louis for a while. He's a guy who was responsible for the bounty gate or whatever it was, taking the players' heads off. That's what he challenged his defense to do. So he's a hard ass. And it was kind of funny because they had to bleep out his mic pretty much most of the night because he's got a lot of colorful language. But any defense led by him, man, they're going to be dangerous. So watch out. Something else I want to talk about, their quarterback. I'm sorry, not their quarterback, but Seattle's quarterback, Ben DiNucci. He kind of cost them that game. Seattle had the ball on the Defenders' 1 yard line with the seconds just ticking off the clock at the end of the game. He turned it over. So he's got some work to do to make it up to that, to make it up to his fellow Seattle team, which he may do tomorrow night. We'll see. But anyway, we got DC. I think if they play turnover-free football, they're going to be tough to beat because they would have blown out Seattle if they wouldn't have turned the ball over a couple times in that game. So we'll see what happens with DC. Like I said, play turnover-free football, keep that defense, playing stout. They're going to be a team to reckon with. my number 5, and again, this may be controversial because they're 0-1, the Seattle Sea Dragons. I know they took the loss, but the Sea Dragons were just a yard away from being 1-0. But a DiNucci fumble ruined that. Seattle moved the ball effectively most of the game. DiNucci attempted 54 passes, completing 35 of them for 282 yards. He had 1 touchdown, but 2 picks and the fumble. While the Sea Dragons lost, they looked like one of the most complete teams in the NFL. If you caught that game, you would have saw DiNucci connecting with Josh Gordon. Remember him, former All-Pro in the NFL, couldn't stay off the Mary Jane. Now he's in the XFL where he can have that Mary Jane probably on the sidelines if he really wants to. And, the defense, they played well, only allowed 177 yards in the loss. So I'm going to get to Seattle a little bit more here in a little bit because they're the Battlehawks opponent tomorrow night. All right, so we'll talk more about them in a minute. My number 6 team at 1-0 is your St. Louis Battlehawks. All right. Yeah, the Battlehawks won, but there's a reason why they're ranked lowest of all the teams with winning record. During the first 58 minutes and 35 seconds of the game, the offense managed just 3 points. To say St. Louis offense looked bad would be an understatement. In just a 1 minute and 25 second span, St. Louis scored 15 points to stun San Antonio and the 25,000 people that were there. Quarterback A.J. McCarron is quickly becoming a St. Louis darling, if you want to call him that. He definitely showed his 8 years experience in the NFL, tossing 2 touchdown passes near the end of the game. He was clutch, man. And, he was clutch when it counted the most. And, I compare him to like Alex Smith. He may not be the flashiest guy in the world. And, I hate to use this term, game manager, but that's what AJ is. He was the only quarterback in the league this week not to throw an interception. All right. The main problem for St. Louis is that offensive line. It was atrocious, and I'll say this, the play calling coming from an offensive head coach, not very creative. All right. Not very good. St. Louis needs to run the ball more. And tomorrow night, again, I'll get to this in a minute. Tomorrow night, they're going to have to run the ball a lot more. All right. That O-line needs to give McCarron a little bit more time to hit his receivers. And those receivers, run your routes. I'm watching the game, and I'm seeing guys not running their routes properly. And that's why AJ was throwing some incomplete passes, because every pass he threw was spot on. They just weren't there. And that's because they weren't running their routes correctly. Again, that could be attributed to not having a preseason. I think that'll get better as the games go on. All right. Quick turnaround for the Battlehawks. Tomorrow night, they got that game in Seattle, which I'll be talking about here in a minute. All right. Number 7, San Antonio Brahmas, 0-1. All right. I was close to ranking San Antonio higher given their solid performance on Sunday until the final 2 minutes. Hines Ward's coaching skills will be tested early this season as he tries to pick up this squad after a demoralizing loss to St. Louis. The Brahmas ran the ball well. They had 133 yards total. Kalen Ballage accounted for 84 of those on 24 carries. The late collapse could be a huge blow to this team. With young teams like that, guys that aren't very experienced, sometimes a loss like that can really destroy a team. So we'll see what happens. And finally, my number 8, the Orlando Guardians. Guys, Orlando is without a doubt the worst team in the XFL. They were blown out by Houston. They don't have a viable starting quarterback, which you have to have in this league. Paxton Lynch, he's horrible. How that guy ever played in the NFL, I don't know. But, man, he is bad. One of the worst performances I've seen by a quarterback. And then, Quentin Dormady, who replaced him, not much better. He threw a garbage touchdown near the end of the game, but it didn't matter. He also threw 2 picks. So after getting behind early, the team had to go away from the run. They were running the ball decently at first, but wound up with just 16 carries overall. Orlando has some good receivers. I'm not saying they have a bunch of bums on the team. They got good wide receivers. They just don't have anybody throwing the ball. So we'll see if they can get that fixed. But right now, the Guardians are the bottom of the barrel for the XFL. So those are my rankings for this week. And, that's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, JM. I was a bit surprised that the Battlehawks were. I didn't expect them to be, top 3 or anything,
Sure.
you know. Maybe at 5th place, but you know what? I definitely agree. The Guardians had the worst game by far. You know, Paxton Lynch, people thought because he had he had NFL experience, they thought it was going to go well, but it didn't. It didn't go well at all.
Right.
And you know, I don't look at these other teams. You just overall see Houston. It wasn't that they beat up as much on a bad team, but they just beat up Orlando. I mean, it was absolutely just relentless. So no, I definitely I think they're very solid rankings. Babs. She's on a delay, just for the heads up, folks.
I'm on a delay, and there's like it's still lagging too. So I'm hearing about every other word you guys are saying right now.
Well, how do you feel based off of what our dear friend, the good doctor, has said about his rankings for week 1?
I didn't get to catch all of the games. I only got to see the St. Louis game because I had other things going on this weekend, but it was a really good game, at least for the Battlehawks, and I wish I could contribute a little bit more with this, but I'm gonna start paying more attention this weekend.
That's a good way to get you into it and get you starting at it. You know, nothing wrong with that. And I anticipate this will be a weekly segment as far as getting the power rankings taken care of. So I definitely look forward to that. Now, looking into week 2, you know, as we want to see what's ahead, especially with the game already being tomorrow night. You know, it's right on us. You know, what is the biggest thing for what's the biggest key for the Battlehawks? And Jan, we'll start with you. If they wanted to beat Seattle.
So in my game preview for tomorrow night, and this is the only game I've previewed so far, just because the other two are Saturday, or the other ones are Saturday and Sunday. I broke it down to 3 things. Number 1, Brian Hill, the running back for the Battlehawks. He had 55 yards on 6 carries in the first game. With the weather, and I just looked at the weather, it's already snowing there. There's snow on the ground. It's going to be about 18 degrees. He's going to have to run the ball. If Brian Hill doesn't get 15 carries and 20 touches, St. Louis isn't winning this game, folks. I mean, that's just the way it is. The Seattle offense, you want to try to keep them off the field as much as possible because they're explosive. Like I said, DiNucci and Gordon, 2 guys who have not just pro experience, but Gordon was an all-pro. And DiNucci, in the limited time we saw him in the NFL, he had some success. He wasn't bad at all. So those 2 guys, they know how to win games. And if you let them on the field a long time, St. Louis is going to have a long, cold night tomorrow night. The second thing is St. Louis offensive line against the Seattle D-line. You know, the Battlehawks offensive line was just terrible. McCarron was sacked 5 times. Seattle, while they didn't register a sack last week, they did have 4 tackles for a loss and held their opponents to just 177 yards. So there's no doubt in my mind with the frigid temps and the home crowd behind them, the St. Louis offensive line is going to have their work cut out tomorrow. And then finally, the third thing, quarterback play. AJ versus Ben DiNucci. And I think this is kind of a cool matchup to watch because, you know, DiNucci looked pretty good last week. And, you know, AJ looked good when he had time. You know, AJ's got decent wide receivers to throw to, where DiNucci's got great wide receivers to throw to. I don't think that the St. Louis wide receivers have really shown us everything they can yet. And I expect to see a lot of tight end involvement for St. Louis, given, you know, Becht being a tight end, and the Battlehawks really going heavy on bringing in the tight ends. I think they have 4 on the roster, if I'm not mistaken. So look for tight end play to be a factor tomorrow night too. As far as my prediction, so in my mind, you got two teams that one team is as close can be to being 0-1, and the other team that is 0-1 is as close to being 1-0. It's a toss-up.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, it's a toss-up, and you got to factor in the snow, the crowd, and one thing that people aren't thinking about, with this being a Thursday night game, most of these players probably don't have the experience coming off a Sunday and having to play already on a Thursday, because a lot of them weren't in the pros. A lot of these young guys weren't in the pros. And even the ones that were, I don't know if McCarron ever played on a Thursday night game. I don't know if DiNucci ever had to go from a Sunday to a Thursday. So I think that could be a factor too. I mean, are they going to be healthy? There's going to be some guys that are pretty beat up going out there. So that's going to be a factor. But when it comes down to it, I think the quarterbacks are going to be the difference. DiNucci showed that he can get careless with the ball in week 1, throwing picks and fumbling. AJ showed just the opposite, that he takes care of the football. Even when he's getting hit and knocked down 5 times, he held on to the ball. So my prediction is 16-14 Battlehawks, and I think it's going to come down to which quarterback takes care of the ball best.
My prediction for the game is actually close to what you had. I had it as a 13-10 Battlehawks, or I'm sorry, 14-10 Battlehawks victory. I don't expect much scoring in this game at all. Weather, number one factor. Of course, I'm one to always say there's no football like snow football. So, that's definitely to me the top factor. But, football is won and lost in the trenches.
Yes.
And if that's the case, St. Louis is in huge trouble. But I think they have a lot of motivation to really pick it up a lot heading into Thursday night's game, or by air date tomorrow night's. I think the defense.
Can I bring up a?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I bring up a question really quick? Okay, I did watch our game, and I noticed that there was a lot of injuries during the game. Has that been like a thing throughout the game for everybody?
Yes.
Because and why is that? Is that just the medical team not preparing them well enough, or is it just their body is not doing what they're supposed to?
There's 2 factors. One, no preseason. That's huge. As much as we discount the preseason, those couple games that these NFL players play, even the starters who get in for a half, that's huge. The second thing is, and I just found this out, these teams have not been going full pads in practice and full contact during practice. The practices have been very, very light, not much physicality. So that's huge. So, you're going to see a lot of injuries. I'd say the first 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to see guys, especially out where it's warmer, cramping. You're going to see a lot of knees getting tore up. You're going to see a lot of ankles, things like that, because their legs aren't ready yet. They're just not in football shape. So it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks for that. But, that was a good observation.
Yeah, because it's like I said, I noticed it a lot in our game, and it's like I said, I didn't get to watch all the games this weekend, so I just wondered if it was league wide or if it was just a fluke.
No, there were a lot of injuries league wide.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that, like I said, it's a compressed season. The fact that they don't go full pads at practice, though, does raise a lot of red flags and concerns heading into games where it's obviously full contact. Whether or not you are a player that's like from undrafted out of college or a guy that's had NFL experience, full pads is full pads.
Yeah.
I should know, and it's not pleasant. But I'm looking forward to the game, and there was a lot of injuries. Brian Hill was one of the notable injuries.
Yes.
And, that right off the bat got a lot of Battlehawks fans worried. And why should they? He's the starting running back. He's the one that fans are excited about, and he eventually came back. But
Yeah.
The O-line is definitely going to be. You need them as healthy as you can because you need them as well as they can. So with that, first I want to say to the good doctor, thank you so much, and I'd love for you to stick around because
Sure.
Babs is going to be taking the reins for this segment.
Okay.
Here on Roundabout Sports. For those that are just now tuning in, as we're at near the 8:30 mark Central Time, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp alongside Babs and alongside our dear friend, the good Dr. JM. Thank you all so much for tuning in and sticking with us throughout the duration of the show. If you have, so the hockey world got shook up a bit a few days ago when Ryan O'Reilly, the captain of the Blues, got traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And this is where I'm going to hand the reins to you to delve into it and delve into the fact that as of February 22nd, which is a few games since then, the Blues have not won a single game. So I want you to.
And Ryan O'Reilly has been scoring and scoring and scoring again since being traded. Okay,
Yeah.
so the Blues, like Jeremy said, traded Ryan O'Reilly, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at some notes while I'm talking to you guys as well. He was traded for a first round and a second round draft pick from Toronto and a third round draft pick from Ottawa for the 2023 draft. And there were a couple of other like low tier players that were involved with that too. Michael Amber, I am so sorry. I am going to butcher these names so bad just because they're really weird. So Michael Abramoff and Adam Gaudette and the Toronto Maple Leafs got Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Acari from the Blues. Now, since being traded, Ryan O'Reilly has, like I said, scoring. He has scored 4 points since being traded. The most recent being last night against the Sabres. He scored 4 points and a hat trick. Nola Kari also has scored a couple of goals since being traded. He scored his first one against the Blackhawks on the 19th of this month. Yeah, it's really kind of a crazy thing to see because Ryan, like you said, was the captain of the Blues and he was very loved in St. Louis as well. And he also helped bring that coveted cup to us as well. So, what do you guys have to add to that? What are your thoughts? I mean, it's definitely roof shaking, so to speak, in St. Louis.
JM, let's start with you on that. What was your thoughts when you especially found out that the Blues literally, not too long after trading away Tarasenko, traded away their captain?
I wasn't shocked. He needed to go. Nothing against him. Great guy. But the Blues are they're going to gut the team. They need to. It's not over yet, folks. I think Barbashev's going. I think you may see Bennington go before it's all over, I hope. This team is a joke right now. Armstrong's doing the right thing. Compile as many picks as you can. Reload this organization with young talent. And, it may struggle for a year or two. I don't think next year is going to be much better. In fact, it may get worse. But it has to be done. It's hard to believe that only 3 years ago this team won the Stanley Cup. And now this is one of the worst.
I think I saw a list yesterday. And I think there's a total of 7 people from the 2019 Cup win team right now, and that includes Sammy coming back. So technically,
I was about to say Sammy came back. So
yeah. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
I just think it's time to move in a different direction. Hey, I'm elated because I'm a Maple Leafs fan. So I love that we got O'Reilly. You know,
Yeah.
Hey, if we
there we
round
go.
this year,
Now I get
you know,
it. It
if
all
we can
comes out.
Right here in my heart.
Hey,
Like in the
but
jugular right
I
there.
will say this.
I know.
I'm out in Kansas City, but there's a lot of Blues fans out here. I mean, Kansas City is the only thing from St. Louis, Kansas City people like are the Blues. But there's rumors going, these Blues fans all are dreaming that we're going to get O'Reilly back come free agency. That's not happening. You can forget that. There's no way. And if they do, it's a huge mistake. You need to go super young, take your lumps for a year, and rebuild it. And it'll be fine. All teams have to go there. Look at Chicago. They were a powerhouse, and they're bad right now. So it'll be fine. It'll be okay. St. Louis fans get spoiled. That's the thing. They're and me being from St. Louis, I can say, because of the baseball team and the success of hockey, even when the Blues, while they didn't win a whole lot of cups, they were always competitive. They were always pretty good. They were always a playoff team.
Yeah.
Fans got spoiled, and it's time to realize that, hey, you can't have a winner every year. I mean, it's just not possible.
Right.
When I found out about the O'Reilly trade, first off, it was a late night. That was the one thing. And then it was a shocker waking up to realize that it wasn't a dream. It was, that Brian O'Reilly, because, trading Tarasenko, that was 150% expected. I was surprised Tarasenko didn't get traded in the offseason, let alone getting traded just within the last 2 weeks. Ryan O'Reilly, you heard the rumblings for a while. You didn't know how certain it was. I have to reiterate the point that JM made of that they have 3 first-round picks next year. That's a great starting point when you want to build a young team. I feel that Braden Shen would become the new captain now. I don't think they're getting rid of Shen anytime soon. And he's been such a consistent piece of this team since before even the Cup years.
Yeah.
So I feel he's going to become the next captain of the Blues, and it would be well-deserved. I'm also surprised, JM, you talk about how Bennington, you wouldn't be surprised, or you wouldn't be surprised if Barbashev's gone or if Bennington's gone. How the hell is Periaco still on the team?
He's another one that I just read today.
I was just getting ready to say that.
How?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say that.
People went from adoring this man, and this is the thing, and I'm not going to chastise the fan base. I am not going to on this. Because don't get me wrong, there's times where fans despise a guy just for a few bad performances, and it's not warranted. But good God, has Periaco had a career worst season? The defense is the reason Bennington's had his struggles.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to act like Bennington's been his best, but it doesn't help when I look back to when Ben Bishop had to save over 50 shots and still lost a game. It practically feels like, I believe it was Jeremy Rutherford who reported it last night during the Blues loss, that there were 73 shots that were into the blue zone. So not necessarily 73 shots on goal, but 73 shots towards the net. If you're Bennington, you should not be having to worry 73 different times throughout the game about making a save.
Yeah.
So the defense has been a major letdown. Torrey Krug been a letdown this year. The team in general has been a letdown. And, when I look at it, to me personally, when I look at the remnants of the Blues team, and it's sad to say that they're remnants almost because, Babs, you brought it up. There's only 7 players left. And I'm going to say 6 because I'm not counting Sammy, because Sammy wasn't on this Blues team throughout this hell of a season.
Right. Yeah.
So, we're going to look at the 6 guys we have, which I believe are Bennington, Shen, Bartuzo, Thomas, Periaco, and Barbashev. And I look at those 6, I can see Periaco needs to go, whether you cut him, whether you trade him, whether you, send him on a mission to Mars or something. I don't know. He needs to go. Do I see Barbashev going? I can definitely see that. Thomas has been very good this year, I feel. I still feel Thomas has been good. I feel Bortuzzo's been good. I feel Bennington's been good. Braden Shen's been the best of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that Ryan O'Reilly, and I hate to say it, but I agree that Ryan O'Reilly needed to go. I wanted the Blues to go with the approach when they got rid of Tarasenko, to build young guys around Shen and O'Reilly. That's what I wanted. But it's like the old song goes, you can't always get what you want. So you're right. Next year can very well be worse than what it is this year.
I expect it to be.
Yeah, it very well could. And I have to tell myself that if it does get to that point, then the Blues, it's a long road. This has come from a Browns fan. So I saw so many losing seasons. Some of them were because they were trying to fix short-term problems. But then they started, you had the 1-15, the 0-16, and that was so they could build to where they're at now. To build to the team that I remember when the Browns would be eliminated from playoff contention by freaking week 12 or week 11. Now it takes near the last week of the season for them to get eliminated, or they actually make the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
So the Blues, that's what they're wanting to build back to. They want to build back to where they can play competitive hockey with a great young group that Armstrong wants to have around for a long time. Every year we worry about these group of guys and they're like, is this guy staying around? Is this guy staying around? Look, if you got the same group of guys that are going to be, and in hockey, you start out so young. Like it's not in the NFL where everybody's at least 20 or 21 when you get in, I think the reason the next year or two might get worse, and like you said, very well expected to, whatnot, it's because minor leagues, the AHL, they have to start somewhere. This isn't where, you're in the NFL and you just go straight to the team. No, you are going to be having to be developed into the future of this franchise, and that will take time. Until then, you just got to hope who you got can hold down the fort. Get a couple good free agent acquisitions. Play your cards right. Hockey teams don't have the money to throw around like the other 3 sporting leagues in the Big 4. They got the least amount of money to work with out of the Big 4. And even though they have probably the second richest history behind MLB.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely see the Blues having a couple more bad years ahead of them. But if it means that they'll be back to being a perennial playoff contender for the long-term future, then I say so be it. At some point, you just got to think long-term. And I feel like, unfortunately, you just didn't want to have it happen this way. And I want to say one more point, Baz, before I let you bring back your point. I think Chief needs to stay. A lot of people think he should go. I think Coach Berube needs to stay because he has a great fire that people say, oh, but he's lost his team. Well, guess what? The team's going. The guys that he so-called lost aren't on the team anymore. So this is your chance to start anew. And look, I would get rid of Armstrong before I'd get rid of Chief. So, and if I think Armstrong's staying, then Chief's staying. So that's all I got on that matter.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only going to say a couple of more things and I guess I'll wrap it up with my points. But even before O'Reilly and Tank were traded, you could just tell that the wind was pretty much knocked out of the sails, so to speak. And they were just kind of skating around, just kind of aimlessly, not really knowing like what their goals were or where their points were. And then Tank gets traded. So they have that 3-game like winning streak. And I thought, hey, maybe they were going to turn it around and maybe that kind of kicked them into the next level. So, they're not the next ones to be traded because obviously, Armstrong's doing something to the team. So, hey, maybe I might be that next guy. So maybe I need to start playing better. And they started doing that for 3 games. And then it started tracking off again. And now we can't even buy a goal from the concession stand now, rather than where we were like, 3 or 4 games ago after Tank was traded. And we were actually kind of scoring goals and winning again. But I honestly think that the trades were needed and they got some really good draft picks in with that. And I'm very excited to see where that goes. And that's all I really have for that.
All right. Well, perfect. So before we wrap it up this evening, there is just one more thing I wanted to bring up because it's starting in, I believe, 3 days now. And it's interesting because the latest prediction rankings were out, and I posted this on our, I-70 Sports Facebook page. So we look at, and let me pull it up for my reference here, but we look at the upcoming Major League Soccer season. And you see where they predict the St. Louis City SC. St. Louis City SC. So most likely to win the MLS Cup. I'm actually going to pull up the rankings on the show so I don't have to just, read it straight from the computer. So if you'll give me just a couple seconds, that's what I love most about this. There we go. So, and I promise, JM, this isn't my way of trying to cut you off.
Move it over a little my way.
Right.
You can move it over my way a little. It's okay.
Oh, shush you.
Okay.
So LAFC is at the 17%, the highest prediction. Now we scroll down and we see that our dear friends at Sporting KC are not high on the list either. They only have a 2% chance. But yet 2% is higher than 0%, and we're at 0%. In fact, we're not on the list. In fact, as you can notice, we're not on the list at all.
I know. Yeah.
It's not even a 0.0001%. It's literally, we have no percent. So first off, I have to ask, we cover Sporting KC, and we're going to cover them a lot more this season and beyond. From what you've heard out there in the KC area, what is the team looking like as far as heading into the 2023 season?
It's a question mark right now. I think that we're hoping that they're slightly above 500. I think 500 would be a good season for this squad. It's a work in progress out here with this team. So yeah, I think that it's going to be fun to see them play St. Louis. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll be out here for that game, and then I'll be back in St. Louis for when they play our guys at home. So it'll be fun just to see that. But yeah, I don't think you can expect much out of this team this year. I mean, listen, they won the championship a few years back, and since then they've been competitive, but it hasn't been anything like it was, and it's not going to be this year either.
They finished in the conference. They finished first in both 2018 and 2020. They haven't won the championship since the cup, I should say, since 2013.
Right.
They finished third in the league in 2018, and then 5th in 2020, but last year they were third, or 2 years ago they were third, 4th in the league. But last year, and I think this is why you mentioned about them being 500 would be good, because they finished in the league. They finished 23rd.
Yeah.
They were overall 23rd with, a record of, if I can find it, 11, 16, and 7. So, yeah, definitely not pleasant. So, as far as St. Louis City SC goes, I don't expect a big championship run. I expect a good competitive season, but they are an expansion team.
Right.
People are going to take the fact they don't have their name on the championship prediction likely as a personal shot. And it's not. When the Houston Texans became a franchise, who the hell expected them to win the Super Bowl that year?
Mm-hmm.
When you add an MLB expansion team, like when the Rays came around, who expected them to win the World Series? It's just how it is. Expansion teams are literally the beginning. They start somewhere, and you have to start from scratch. So I will say right now, though, I expect ratings through the roof, and I expect attendance through the roof.
Yeah.
And there's not even a roof at that stadium. But I'm excited because, and Babs, you know this as well as I do, everybody is talking about St. Louis City SC.
Yep. And my son is so excited for it too. He's a huge soccer fan. I don't know a thing about it, but he's really excited about it.
Well, there you go. Well, see, there's another one on the list for you to get into, I tell you.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I'm going to say it has been a phenomenal show this evening. This has been an absolute blast, and I thank both of you for being on this evening.
No problem.
I look forward to, and I want to shout out for those that are still tuning in. The Good Doctor is the leader of the I-70 Sports Media West branch. If it's in KC, he's the head honcho, and he's held down the fort phenomenally. He's done such a great job, and I look forward how we keep expanding. And like I've said at the opening of the show, the graphics you see on the Facebook and page and Twitter page, and now the Instagram account, Babs does a fantastic job, and I can't thank her enough. Before we close out, I want to say first, Hollywood, we're thinking of you, buddy. We love you. I know each day's a battle for you, but we're always praying for you to get better. So that's the first thing I wanted to throw out there. I know he's tuning in. Next, if you want to advertise with us, whether it be on Roundabout Sports or any of our shows or on any of our pages or the website, just DM myself or Hollywood James Knox or the Good Doctor himself, JM Housewright, and we will get you set up and connected and through the right avenues. We have as always, the NAMI hotline, the helpline on the screen, the National Alliance of Mental Illness at 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-NAMI. Mental illness is something that so many of us struggle with on a daily basis, and nobody should have to struggle with it alone. And speaking of never struggling alone, as always, there's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline that we put on the screen. And for that, you just dial 988. It is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. And on top of that, you're just a phone call away. It just takes that one message, that one call. And on top of that, you yourself can be the person to listen to somebody else. You can be that ear for somebody who needs listening to. It's amazing how much the power one person can have. There's a lot of blessings in the world, and sometimes some people just need a little a little more motivation, a little help. But that little help goes a long way. So I want to thank you all so much for tuning in this week on Roundabout Sports, and be sure to join us next week for another insane episode. It's been fantastic. The gentleman below me
No
is
more-
the good doctor.
No more
What?
Ka-Kaws or cock-a-doodle-doos next week.
No more. Well, it depends on how Thursday night goes. I'll tell you that much. We'll break out the cock-a-doodle-doos and the Ka-Kaws all day long.
You know,
I'm sorry, I had to.
I don't know if a Battlehawk can survive 18-degree weather or not. They might.
I was gonna say I don't know.
I know I couldn't.
Shit, I was gonna say, isn't that what hibernation's all about?
I mean,
Isn't this what I learned in science class in elementary school about hibernation? Nevertheless, folks, he's the good doctor. She's the amazing Babs. I'm the Maestro, Jeremy Karp. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading.